Hello. All right, now we're going to continue with our assignment here. So we're still working on assignment 8. So just to refresh, if you watch, you need to watch the first two videos. We have our class declaration, our class member functions, and our friend functions. And we are confident that all of that is working. We separated our declaration from our implementation, and our friend function implementation is down here below the main function. So before we get started on our implementation of our class, let's just review a little bit about about array of objects. So my type is vegetable. So when I type vegetable V1, I am getting one vegetable. If I type vegetable list of size 50, which is what we're going to be doing, I am going to get 50 vegetables. So this is one vegetable, this is 50 vegetables consecutive in memory. So if I were to draw my memory map, each one of these would be a vegetable. I'd have a vegetable, a vegetable, a vegetable. But it's much easier to represent an array horizontally instead of vertically. So I'm going to represent it like this. So this is my list, which is a pointer. And then I have an integer called count that is initialized to 0. So this is list at index 0, which is a vegetable. List is a pointer to a vegetable. So I have index 1, index 2, index 3, all the way up to index 49. For this assignment, you certainly do not need to put 50 vegetables in there. Actually, your default constructor will construct 50 vegetables, but we are going to keep a count that's going to keep track of where we are in our list. So by keeping track of where we are in our list, we can count will always be the next empty one. So when count is 0, we're going to add into our vegetable at index count or list at index count. We will dot set ID, for example, and maybe it'll be 101. Okay, so list at index count, we're going to set ID, set the name, set everything. So in here, you'd have ID is 101. If you set the name, you would have carrot. If you set the color, you would have orange. If you set the price, it would be like whatever, 80 cents, and the cost $1.10. So that's going to be my first vegetable. It's not V1 is not the name of the vegetable. List at index 0 is the name of that vegetable. Then when I add one to count, I say count plus plus or count equals count plus 1 or count plus equals 1 or count add 1 to count, then this is going to be my next empty vegetable. So count is 1 when it's at index 0, count is 2 when I have 2 in there, count is 3 when I have 3 in there, and that's how we're going to keep track of our static array, our partially filled static array of objects. So let's get started with the code. All right, so I'm here in my compiler with my code. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to declare my static array. My list is not going to be size 100. We can just make it size 50. And I'm going to put my count at 0 because I have not added any vegetables into the list yet. So therefore, it is still empty. So I have my list. When I do this right here, it's going to call my default constructor 50 times. So if I put in here in my default constructor, if I have a cout, it will call my default constructor 50 times just to show you this. So you don't like panic and see all these uh, and see this here. So see, it called my default constructor 50 times, but my default vegetable is empty and I don't really want to deal with it printing that. So I have taken that comment. I've commented out that statement. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to load from the file. So I'm going to get my code here. I gave you guys the code to load from a file. So my function to load from a file is right here. This is my prototype. So I put this here above main. This is my function prototype, and I take the definition here to load from the file. And this is the function definition to load from a file. So let's take a look at it. Obviously, you're not going to load vegetables. You're going to load whatever your object is. You're going to pass it the list. You're going to pass it a reference to the count. So I'm going to connect to my file, vegetables.txt. I'm declaring one variable of each of my 5 member variables, an ID, name, color, cost, and price. You can assume that you put everything in the file in the correct order. So it is in the correct order. So it's going to read in from the file the ID, the name, the color, the cost, and the price. So that's how it's in there. So this is where it reads in the information from the file. This is just in case it doesn't connect to the file. Now I'm just printing it onto the screen that it has read it from the file. And I told you count is keeping track of the empty spot. So I'm going to set the ID, set the name, and since I have 5 of those, I'm going to, so you don't have to watch me type. So I'm going to set the ID, set the name, set the color, set the cost, set the price. I need to use my mutator functions for this because this is not a friend function or anything. This is just a regular programmer defined function that does not have access to any of the member variables. Then I'm going to add one to count. So I'm going to keep doing that until I get to the end of the file. So if I have 5 vegetables in the file, then count at the end will be 5. This is just making sure that you properly read from the file. So now I can call this function and I can read from the file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my count got properly updated because this is getting passed by reference. So after I read 5 items from the file, this should be 5. I'm also going to pick one of my veggies in the list. I'll just pick the second one at index 1. That's the second item in my list. Remember, the one at index 0 is the first one. Dot display. I know that my display function is working properly, so it should display the second vegetable that's in my list. So let's test this and make sure it works as expected. All right, so the second one in my list is a spinach. So the count, I don't like that, so I'm going to put an end line here. Let's try again. All right, so it read all 5 vegetables from my file. It finished reading the file. The count is 5, and now it prints the second one that's on my list. If I wanted to test it again, just to make sure, I could print the first one on my list. I could print a couple of them, right? The first one and the third one. So it's going to display, I don't know if it, yeah, it puts an end line, so it probably will be okay. All right, so it printed the first one, which is at index 0, and then it printed the fourth one. I said third one, but it's the fourth one because it's at index 3. So I feel confident that I'm reading the data from my file, so now I can get rid of this. Now it's time to do the run menu function. So let's go here and get our run menu function. So I've given that to you. Here is the run menu function. So this function is going to have some options. Just put the function definition down here. So it's going to print the options onto the screen, get the selection, and return the selection. I need to put the prototype here above main. And because I don't want you to have to watch me type, I'm going to go ahead and get the menu options from my other code, my completed code. So you're going to print your options here. You're going to add this in. I'm just going to copy and paste it so you don't have to watch me. So the options are a 1 to add a veggie to the list, a 2 to display, a 3 to compare, a 4 to calculate the difference, a 5 to calculate the profit, and 0 to quit. You get the selection, you return the selection. This has an integer return type. So what I'm going to do here is this is going to be my choice. I'm going to have a do while loop that's going to call this run menu function. It will call the run menu function. The run menu function will get called. It will return an integer, and it's going to continue to go as long as I don't get a 0. If it returns a 0, this do while should stop. So I want to make sure that it's working as it should. So I'm going to test it now. All right, so make a selection, 5. Make a selection, 1. Make a selection, 10. The only thing that should have any impact is if I put 0, it should quit the program, and it does. So now the next thing I need to do is I need to process that selection. So to process that selection, what process that selection is going to do is it's going to take the number and my list and the count. And it's going to have a bunch of conditions that check to process based on what the user selected. So I have my process selection function right here, which I've given you help with. So this is my run menu, select my run menu, and this is my process selection. So there's going to be some things involved in processing the selection. So let's first go here and put the process selection function prototype up here. All right, in order to process selection, I'm going to pass it the integer choice, the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or any other number. Assume it's an integer. I'm going to pass my list. My list is a pointer, so if my list gets updated inside of this function, it's also updated. It's passing the pointer, so it's also updated in main. And I'm going to pass a reference to count because count allows me to, because one of the options is to add an item, which is going to add 1 to the count. So I'm going to, this is my entire main function here. Everything else, it's going to keep going back to main every time I get a choice and every time I process a selection. But other than that, processing the selections is going to be offloaded into other functions. So let's take a look at what process a selection is going to do. So the first one, if they choose 1, you're going to add a veggie to the list. So right here, I'm just going to make sure that this is working as expected. Add a veggie to the list. So I'm going to make sure that if I pick 1, it will add a veggie to the list. If I pick 2, it's going to display the entire veggie list. Now you don't need to put these COUTs. This is just to make sure that my process selection is, like I said, we're doing step by step, one thing at a time. I want to make sure my process selection and my run menu and all of that is working as expected. Choice 3 is going to have a little bit more complicated because choice 3 is going to compare 2 veggies. So to compare 2 veggies, I'm going to have to locate and find them. Selection 4 is going to calculate two veggies. So it's going to calculate a difference of two veggies. And since it's going to do that, I'm going to need to select and find those two veggies. And this one is going to calculate a profit. And for that, I'm also going to have to find a veggie. So right now, I'm not worrying about how I'm going to calculate the profit and how I'm going to how I'm going to find the veggie, how I'm going to find the veggies to compare, how I'm going to display, how I'm going to add. Right now, I'm just testing my process selection function. That's the only thing I'm testing. I'm making sure that my run menu works as expected and my process selection works as expected, and then I will one by one tackle each one of these items. So that's the procedure. That's how you should do it. You should build one thing at a time, make sure that it works. And once you're confident that that works, then you add the next feature. So now I know that I can read from the file. I have my list. So if I select one, it will add a veggie to the list. If I select two, it will display the list. Three will compare two veggies. 4 will calculate the difference. 5 will calculate a profit. 6 will tell me it's not valid. 7 will tell me it's not valid. And 0 will quit the program. So I'm able to get all of that working, and now I can focus on doing one item at a time. The first item I'm going to do is display the veggie list. That's the easiest one to do out of these. So to display the veggie list, I can go here to this code, and I have a function here called display the list. Oops, purchase, add a veggie, compare, display the list. All right, so this function will display my list. So I go back here, and you can see now if you put your definitions at the bottom, you can have your everything in any kind of order. Just put your definitions at the bottom. And if you do one thing at a time, it is not as it doesn't seem like such a big task, a big challenge. So to display the list of veggies, I just pass the list and I pass the count, and I'm going to create a loop that's going to go one by one through each one. And when it's 0, it will be veggie list at index 0. That's the first veggie dot display. Then it'll be veggie list at index 1 dot display, veggie list at index 2 dot display. And if you remember when we first read the veggies from the file, that's exactly what we did. We displayed a couple of our veggies. This is just going to display all of our veggies. So now in order to do that, I just need to call the function in my process selection here. So I don't really need to see out that anymore. I just need to call the function. The name of the function is display list. And I will pass it my list and my count. So now I've made a change and it's time to test it. I want to display the list. So here we are. It's displaying my whole list. It is working as expected. I'm going to do one more thing in this video, and then I'm going to save the searching for the next video. So the next thing I'm going to do is adding to the list. So choice 1 is to add a veggie to the list. So how do I do that? Well, let's find the function. Here is the function that adds to the list. I always have all these typos, but it's okay. Adding a veggie to the list with user input. So here, we're going to declare, because we can't, this is not a friend function, we can't access the private member variables right away. So we need to get the name and then set the name, get the ID and then set the ID, all for all of the member variables. So again, I don't want you to have to watch me type all this. So I will get this. So just we are going to declare variables. These are the variables. We're just doing one veggie at a time. So we're passing the count. So if count is 5, then 5 is going to be the empty spot. So this is all going to go at location 5, at location 5, one by one, prompt for each input. Then after we call the add veggie function, did I put the prototype up here? I did not. So I need to put the prototype up here. Okay, and then after I call the I go here to my process. I'm going to call the add veggie function, which is add veggie. After I call the add veggie function, which is going to take the list and the count. So the count is 5 before I call it. I need to make sure that I add 1 to count. So the next time I add a veggie, it's going to be updated properly, or if I display, it's going to be updated properly. This is a pass by reference. So when 1 gets added to count here, it gets added here and it goes back and it's updating in memory by reference. And so it should be updated. Also, the veggie list is a pointer to the list is a pointer to the array. So that's also getting updated everywhere. So let's build it and test it. All right, I'm going to add a veggie, enter the name, bean, green, ID 105. Again, you can assume they're going to enter the right data in the right order and a unique ID. The cost per pound is 75 cents and the price is $1.50. So now I've added the veggie. Now if I want to check to make sure it's into my list, assuming my display works properly, I just pick number 2 and now you can see that I'm displaying and the new veggie has been added to my list. So after this, we're going to do our other 3 features of our menu and I'm going to save that and do that in the final video.